Connections is one of the word games on the New York Times. In this game, you pool together a group of 4 words which have an underlying relation. On their own, they may seem to be unrelated, but in conjunction with others, a grander meaning is formed. Humans are no different. We seek solace in meaningful connections to achieve a sense of belonging and security. In the 11-episode-long run of Ping Pong the Animation, we watch as the characters interact with, ricochet off, and ultimately affect the trajectory of each other's lives. Each character, at a different point in their journey, brings their own experiences, situations, and baggage along as they attempt to navigate the challenges presented, the connections and consequences of the interactions propelling the narrative. Each connection expertly used to explore various facets of the human experience. There are 5 teenagers that are the main engine behind the plot of Ping Pong, those being Sakuma Manabu, Kong Wenge, Ryuichi Kazuma, Makoto Tsukumoto, and Yutaka Hoshino. Though all the characters' stories and motivations are interlaced, in this video I will focus on the phenom from China, Kong Wenge. In the first episode, we're introduced to so-called China through Peiko, a Chinese exchange student who's been kicked off his provincial team. He's interesting enough for Peiko and Smile to skip practice and run a little reconnaissance mission. This so-called China is Kong Wenge. Kong is a ping pong prodigy from China who's been kicked off the provincial team, who now finds himself in Japan. By conquering this island nation, he might just claim his ticket back to his homeland. As Kong tours the training facility at Tsujido High, he's disappointed in what he sees. The level at this high school is absolutely nothing compared to what he's used to in China. He's dismissive of the club and honestly wants nothing to do with them, their practice regimen, their language, any of it. When our protagonists enter the gym, Kong seems to be gone, so they decide to play ping pong since, well, why not? They're already there. The reverberating pings and pongs from their rackets is heard by Kong and his coach. His coach notices how the hitter is controlling the game, but Kong disagrees, saying the chopper is losing on purpose. Kong enters the gym, and despite him wanting to test out Smile's chop, due to a language barrier and Peiko's over-eagerness and confidence, we end up getting a duet between Kong and Peiko. And we quickly find out how the product of 4,000 years of Chinese empire compares to a nation at the edge of the world. I called this match between the two a duet, but I lied. There is no back and forth, it's a one-sided dismantling, a solo performance featuring Kong and Kong alone. Not even any ad-libs by Peiko. Kong skunks Peiko with a perfect 11-0. Peiko was anticipated and read and ultimately fell straight on his face, both figuratively and literally. It all ended as fast as it started. Despite his masterclass performance, Kong shows frustration. Such a fall from grace. Despite eye to eye at the table, he looks not at his opponent but straight past him. A ticket to the plane that left him behind. Just 2 more months in this hell. He'll prove himself at the regional qualifiers and claim his rightful throne. In the meantime, he continues his training with his coach, isolating himself from the rest of the ping pong club, disregarding those around him and locking in, eyes fixed way past to what none of them see, a summit they can't even imagine. At the regional qualifiers, we find Kong plowing through his first few opponents. Through a stroke of luck, he's matched up against Smile in the 3rd round, finally getting to test out the ever so elusive chopper. Was there actually any talent behind those glasses, or was he just being too hopeful? And maybe he was just being hopeful. He cleans up the first set against Smile in emphatic fashion, defeating him 11-2. Kong has a place to be, and that place, it's definitely not here. Even without his full focus, leading to some sloppy play, the chopper he waited 2 months to face was nothing more than another rusty bike tossed into the river. Midway through the second set, something changes. The rusty bike starts to adapt and slowly hums himself into the lead, functioning like a well-oiled robot. Kong's sloppy play isn't cutting it anymore. He was being toyed with, anticipating all the wrong shots. As frustration and doubt creeps in, he keeps on being outplayed. If Peiko vs Kong was a solo performed by Kong, this match has become a solo performance by Smile, not only figuratively, but also visually and auditorily. As Smile tightens the noose point by point, he does so in a world of his own, focused on his game, humming as he inches towards victory. And just like that, our sympathetic robot throws the match, letting Kong keep his dream alive. Since the beginning, Kong showcased amazing perception. He noticed Smile letting Peiko win even before Smile realized it himself. He also noticed that Smile could understand Chinese, but this perception is a double-edged sword. He can't lie to himself. He knows that Smile let him win. Doubt slowly creeps in, but oh well. There's no time to cry over spilled milk. If he wins this match, he'll secure a spot for himself in the national tournament. Just one more win. His next opponent, the hope of this island nation, Ryuichi Kazuma, aka Dragon. Dragon opens up the match, smothering Kong. Like a nightmare where you try to punch and you're not able to move your arm, Kong finds himself in the same situation, hopelessly trying to fight back against this force of nature. The only difference being he's wide awake and this is reality. Without a weak spot in sight, Dragon slowly rips up Kong's ticket back to China. That ticket was his last chance. He was supposed to win on this tiny island and make his comeback on home soil. There wasn't supposed to be anyone at the edge of the world that would stop him. He was ping pong royalty from the country of ping pong. He was chosen by fate and had been gifted with perception and talent. He's only been exiled because of a tiny mistake. It's not his fault, it's his team's fault. He's gonna prove them wrong. He's got his vision set to the future, the only future he will accept, but as the game slips away from him, whose fault was it? Has being in Japan caused him to become rusty? As the game nears its conclusion, Kong looks over at his coach, relaxes, and smiles. Kong is a very perceptive character, but even then, it took a devastating loss to accept his reality. He was angry, not because he was kicked off the team, not because he was forced to play in Japan, but because he was weak. Already leaving his home country and everyone and everything he knew, he further isolated himself, uninterested in learning Japanese or associating with his teammates. You could rationalize this by saying he's just focused on his goals, but that line of thinking is self-destructive. Kong dismissed both Dragon and his teammates as players he doesn't like. By blocking out both, he's entered his comfort zone, a zone where he isn't reminded of the things he's angry at, his own weakness. Dragon's strength reminds him of those who took his spot, those who have a ticket as he's on the ground watching the plane fly by. And his teammates, they remind him of his reality, of weakness. If he was shunned, maybe he can go forward by ignoring them. Maybe if he trains in isolation, focusing on himself only, he can prove that he's better than everyone. He's the king of a jungle, but a jungle with no other animals. Oftentimes we feel comfort in an echo chamber. A false sense of security fuels our egos, isolating us from reality and ultimately escaping thoughts of alternate futures. By avoiding resistance and rejection, we attribute acceptance as progress, yet in reality it's nothing but stagnation. Being content in your little bubble. But the larger the bubble, the easier it pops. The reality as it stands for Kong is he's away from home, he doesn't speak the language, he has no results to show for, either domestically or abroad, and his coach is leaving. Kong sits with his coach as they part ways. They aren't analyzing the game, what they could have done differently, but instead, they have a rather calm and honest conversation. Kong comes to terms with his emotions. He had been on the Chinese provincial team since he was 8, living away from home ever since. He's always been homesick. He remembers the candy his mom would send him while he was away, but what he missed the most was his mom's homemade wontons. A taste of home. Leaving is never easy, no matter if it's the first time or the 100th time. Kong had bottled up all these feelings and let them boil in the background. Locking up and putting his head in the sand, misplacing his anger, teetering on the edge of loner and lonely. Kong decides to stay back in Japan for another year. While away for the main plot, we occasionally peer into Kong's subtle shift in stance, engaging with this team and even starting to learn some Japanese, or English for me because I watched the dub, but eventually gaining their respect. The same players he avoided like the plague are the same ones he engages with, mentors, and encourages. This is a stark contrast to the leadership style of Dragon, though that will be its own video. Many redemption arcs have common pitfalls, such as becoming a sacrificial lamb or simply apologizing and moving on. Kong's arc comes with quantitative change. He engages with his teammates, learned Japanese, garnered respect, and established meaningful connections, making his mother's wontons the thing he missed the most with his newfound family. Despite making what seems like a full 180, he still has the same humor and maintains his flair, combing his hair and all. He's still Kong. Away from the main plot, Kong's character arc is one of the first to resolve, essentially culminating midway through the runtime in my favorite scene, singing karaoke. Ironically singing I'm All Alone on Christmas Eve with his entire team next to him, juxtaposed with the glances of the rest of the cast experiencing their own loneliness. Despite becoming more honest with himself, job's not over. He's still here to play ping pong. A year's pass and we find Kong reuniting with his coach at regional qualifiers. To his coach's surprise, he boasts about how much his team has improved. Is this really the same kid he left behind a year ago? Kong moves into the top 8 in style and finds himself where he was last year, one win away from the national championship. But in front of him isn't Dragon this time, it's Peiko, the same kid he swept 7 episodes ago. Only difference is, this isn't the same Peiko, neither is this the same Kong. Table 12 finally gets to feature a match where Peiko and Kong go toe to toe, actually a duet this time. Just like last year, Kong finds himself behind. Unlike last year though, he's composed and self-aware, but ultimately, things don't go his way. Another exit, another conversation on the hill, but this time, he's not alone. I first watched Ping Pong the Animation in high school. I was talking with a friend who had also watched it and he mentioned his favorite character was Kong. I was genuinely confused. Sure, Kong was scary for the first few episodes, established as the first major roadblock, an early stage boss, but to me, he was just a loser. He isolated himself and lost, and then he gained friends and nothing changed. He lost again. Same tournament, same round. In the story of high school ping pong, he had nothing to show for. Over the years, I found myself revisiting the show again and again, but at different stages of my life. Each time viewing it through the eyes of the new me. As I bring new experiences, I project new feelings onto the characters. After moving out to university, the story of Peiko's triumph or Dragon's burden of expectation didn't resonate with me like Kong's homesickness. I started to understand it. I didn't think I was suddenly Kong, but I was able to validate my feelings with his character. Homesickness is so irrational. Recently, I had a work trip where I went to Cancun for a week. It was honestly great, getting to escape the Canadian winter, not having to work, plus getting to enjoy the resort on the ocean. But when I went to go to sleep the first night, I just lay there. There wasn't anything wrong, there wasn't anything to worry about. But for some reason, I wasn't able to fall asleep. It's irrational, just because I wasn't in my bed, just because I wasn't in my home. But that irrationality is what makes us human. We're more than just a resume of our accomplishments. We're a product of our experiences, emotions, and interactions. More than just the sum of our parts. But how do we deal with when we lose one of our parts? Who do we become? And for our guy Kong, he didn't just lose a part of his life when he was kicked off the Chinese team. He essentially lost all of it, ignoring the void left in his life and isolating himself. But that just led to the parts remaining to slowly wither away as well. The second time around, he chose to not ignore the void, rather sharing the pain through making an effort to establish and maintain meaningful connections. This may be seen as selfish, making comrades to shoulder your pain, a Sherpa to carry your bags as you climb the mountain, but that's just how it is. It's transactional. That's how this all works. Sometimes you give, sometimes you take. But it's not always that bleak. It's not always pain. There will come a time where you share your happiness. But none of this works without effort. You can't seek connection without sacrifice. Going the full mile means opening up, letting others in, and leaving yourself vulnerable. Kong had to let go of his ego and pride, but in turn, garnered respect and recognition on a personal level. If he hadn't made a meaningful connection with his team, he would have still lost, but the burden of the loss would be his own to carry.
文革呀，你的人生刚刚开始，现在才刚刚走到起跑线上。我已经不想再……哎，我说的不是打球，是说人生呐。
Tunnel vision, missing the forest for the trees. As we rush headlong through everything life throws at us, we take our next step without resolving the voids of the past. Kong was too focused on going back to China, and we were too focused on attributing his value to his high school ping pong results. How good were your high school ping pong results? Do you hear how stupid that sounds? The show is purposely presented in a highly focused lens where the characters stake their lives on the game. Both us and the characters focus only on the flaws, the things that are missing, and disregard everything else. At the end of the show, many years in the future, we see Kong has made the Japanese national team. The same country he loathed became his future. He gave this island nation a chance and took advantage of the cards he was dealt. And yeah, if success is measured by your ping pong power level, Kong is up there. Life isn't fair, but we have to operate within the confines of our means, do the best with our current situation. Accept reality with our eyes open. You can't run with your eyes closed. And just maybe, new paths will open up. Engage with the reality, with others, with the truth. Maybe, if we shared our struggles with the other strugglers, well, maybe, just maybe, we could create a symphony, teaching each other how to fly.